Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here, and I've got another surprise to share with you guys today, and I've got a guest speaker on. Yesterday, I focused on giants and had evidence from the Smithsonian's own vault that I showed you, where they admitted to 7'6" giants, 7-foot giants, giants that had jawbones that could cover a human face, and so much more, even newspaper articles and clippings from that. Today, I wanted to bring on one of Steve Quayle's other partners, if you will, and he is the director of Genesis 6 Productions, and they're going to be having a conference come September 15th and 16th at gen6conferences.com, so make sure you check that out. But I have with me their director there, Timothy Alberino. So are you with me over there, Tim?
I'm here.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you came on the broadcast, because you're kind of just following up on everything that Steve and I talked about yesterday about all the giants, and we just kind of focused on the facts. Who are they? What are they? Is there evidence for them? Now, I know you've kind of studied UFOs, Nephilim, fallen angels, what's going on in the Vatican. You even spent some time in a jungle. You've looked into deep underground military bases, and we had some pretty amazing topics that we spoke about prior, cloning and everything. In a nutshell, can you tell a little bit about maybe what you do and what you've discovered, or some of your biggest discoveries along the way?
Well, what I do is I'm a filmmaker. I work with Steve Quayle with the True Legends documentary film series for Gen 6 Productions. And basically for the last few years, I've been traveling all over the world investigating all things concerning the Genesis 6 narrative, giants, UFOs, the alien question, and everything in between. So that's what I've been doing for the last few years. And our films, we have 3 episodes completed at this point. Our last film is our 3rd episode, Holocaust of Giants. And we talk about in that particular film, we talk about the island of Sardinia and the megaliths that are on the island of Sardinia, and the legends of giants, and we interview people who actually dug up the bones of giants. We're hired by the government to dig up the bones of giants, 9-10 feet tall, 10 feet plus. And so it was an extremely intriguing investigation. And we were with Tom Horn in the desert Southwest, and in the previous film before that, we were at the Vatican and on the island of Malta. We were in Peru. So we've been investigating and uncovering some pretty, I would say, some pretty fascinating information, and trying to put the pieces together for people.
So along the way in your studies, and would you say there is any, obviously there's a lot of biblical references. We have the Book of Enoch. What is some of the strongest evidence for giants or UFOs that you've come across? To say to a non-believer, someone who doesn't believe in the UFO, what would you say to that?
Well, much of the evidence for UFOs and even giants is subjective. Objective evidence would be bones, a full skeleton of a giant that could be DNA tested, that we could prove using the scientific method. The same can be said for UFO. If a UFO crashed and you were able to recover pieces of it and bodies inside of the craft and subject them to the scientific method and testing and so forth. But unfortunately, that just doesn't happen, because there's many factors why that doesn't happen. There's a global cover-up, a very powerful cover-up concerning what's called core reality. And core reality is anything dealing with the alien question, giants, stargates, and the general Genesis 6 narrative, and the mystery and the secrets concerning the antediluvian past. So, in terms of proof, I believe that first and foremost, all over the earth, there's absolutely scientific proof for a global flood. To begin with, there was a catastrophe, a great cataclysm on the earth that absolutely demolished, annihilated an advanced civilization that was once inhabiting the earth. That, to me, is unequivocally true. The evidence for that event is indisputable. I believe that the megaliths all over the planet, the fact that and when I say megaliths, I'm talking about these ancient constructions and what we believe are antediluvian pre-flood constructions that are devised using extremely large megalithic stones that are fit together without the use of mortar. The best example of this can be found, I believe, in Peru, in the walls of Sacsayhuaman, and even a more exquisite example can be found in the walls of Ollantaytambo, the Cyclopean walls of Ollantaytambo. And this is a construction, this is a form of masonry, a level of masonry surpassing even what we can accomplish today. And these are stones that weigh hundreds of tons that are fit together with such precision that it's often said that you can't even pass a blade or a blade or a single hair between the joints, and in many cases that is indeed true. This is the Cyclopean architecture that existed in the world before the Great Cataclysm, in the world before the Great Flood. So there was an advanced civilization inhabiting the earth before it was annihilated. That, in my mind, is easy to prove. And I believe we have proved it, not just us. Others have done fine work in this on this topic, and I believe it's undeniable. And as I said before, it's unequivocally true. There was a cataclysm that absolutely annihilated an advanced civilization. Now, if you want to identify who that advanced civilization was, it gets very, very complex very quickly, because the pre-flood world was a time in which the sons of God, the B'nai Elohim, the Watchers, descended to the earth and engaged in miscegenation, mass miscegenation, genetic corruption, and produced all kinds of genetic hybrids on the earth, including giants. Monsters, the Book of Giants calls them. The Book of Giants was discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls, along with the Book of Enoch and many of the manuscripts that we have in the Old Testament. So this is a narrative, by the way, that can be traced through every major ancient civilization on the planet. The narrative of a great cataclysm that destroyed an advanced civilization that was comprised of not only human beings but hybrids, and furthermore the progenitors of those hybrids, the gods themselves, which we would denote as fallen angels.
Now, considering they were very prevalent on the earth back in the days of Noah and pre-flood, as you said, is there a resurgence of them going on now? And how come we don't see as much action, if you will, now versus back then?
Well, back then you had 200 Watchers that descended to the earth in open rebellion against God. And they came down and they began to engage in sexual intercourse with women. They copulated not only with women, but also with beasts, with animals.
And that's in the Book of Enoch, just to clarify, right?
Yes. Yes, it's the Genesis 6 narrative further expounded in the Book of Enoch. And other extra-biblical texts, and again, in many of the ancient legends around the earth. And these angels were engaged in these Watchers were engaged in open rebellion, and what they did brought a swift judgment. They themselves were bound they were bound in the abyss. They were sentenced to pass a very long period of time in the abyss. One of them was bound and placed in the desert of Dudael, but their offspring, the giants, before the Watchers were bound and banished to the abyss, they had to witness the destruction of their beloved offspring, specifically the giants, who annihilated each other before God sent the flood to wipe the genetic slate clean on the earth and reseed the earth with the pure seed, with the good seed that God had originally designed. So that was a very special event in which we had open rebellion on the earth. Remember, the sons of Cain were very wicked. They were engaged, I believe, in some very intense sorcery. I think they had something to do with the descent of the Watchers. But we will be, and we are, rapidly approaching a time that is analogous with the days of Noah, that is going to reflect in a frightening way what was occurring in the world before the great cataclysm, in the world before the flood of Noah, which was genetic miscegenation. And we're approaching that reality extremely rapidly. We are on the cusp of the genetic revolution right now.
Well, have they been released again? The 200 angels that were bound, are they released?
I don't know if they're released. Some believe that they will be released at the end. Others believe that they will not be released, that they're held until the day of judgment. What we do know is that the giants, that when the giants died, there was a decree in the book of Enoch. God decrees concerning the giants, they're neither fully of their fathers, the watchers, and they're neither fully of their mothers, their human mothers. So God decrees that when the giants die, their spirits will be vagabonds upon the earth, that they will be called unclean spirits upon the earth. They will roam the earth. They will desire physical bodies, but they will be bodiless, disembodied. They will have all of the carnal desires that we have, including hunger and thirst, sexual desires, that they will not be able to fulfill because they do not have bodies. So it was a torment. They were sentenced to this very tormenting condition, which is to wander the earth as disembodied vagabonds. Now, these became the possessing spirits, what the New Testament calls the unclean spirits, hearkening back to the book of Enoch. In fact, Jesus confronted the unclean spirits because in the book of Enoch, they were told, as part of this sentence, as part of this judgment decreed by God, they were told that this would be their condition upon the earth, wandering as disembodied vagabond spirits, until the day of judgment, until the great judge would come and judge them. So you fast forward into the New Testament, here you have Jesus, the Son of God, the great judge, is on the earth. But in their minds, prematurely, because they knew that the appointed time had not yet come, so they threw themselves at the feet of Jesus, at the feet of the great judge, and they even said in the New Testament, you can read this in the Gospels, that they throw themselves at the feet of Jesus and they say, "We know who you are. Why have you come before the appointed time?" They knew he was the judge, but they also knew that the hour of their judgment, of the culmination of their judgment, had not yet come. So these entities, the disembodied spirits of the giants, entered into, and I would say not just of the giants, but also of the hybrid monsters that were resultant from the miscegenation of the watchers. They entered into the post-flood context as unclean spirits. However, we also have on the post-flood side of history, we have the appearance of the Rephaim and of the giants, again, of the Nephilim. And there are many conjectures as to how that happened. It's very controversial. Some people believe that there was a second incursion. In other words, it happened again. The watcher, there was another event of fallen angels descending to the earth, copulating with human women. That's a possibility. But I have a feeling, because of the research that I've done, that leads me to believe that we have what I refer to as the exiles of Atlantis. Atlantis is a metaphor. It's an analogy of the pre-flood world. I believe Atlantis was an actual city, but it's also an analogy of the pre-flood world. So we have what I refer to as exiles of Atlantis. We have escapees of the world before the flood of Noah, escapees entities that were able to somehow escape the flood, hybrid non-human entities that escape the flood either by going off planet or by going into the chambers of the earth, which they somehow sealed off. Remember, there was a degree of advanced technology in the world before the flood, so this is not as far-fetched as it may sound. But there are other ideas of how the Nephilim made it into a post-flood context. I mean, there could have been sorcery involved. There could have been, Tom Horn talks about fit extensions. There could have been a situation in which, as some of the extra biblical texts say, that one of the sons of Noah found a tablet inscribed with some of the writings of the Watchers, and through some kind of necromancy was able to was able to call up the spirits of some of these entities and re-embody them. So there's all kinds of speculation on how the pre-flood hybrid entities made it to the other side of the flood. What we don't have to speculate about is that they did. They absolutely did.
Oh, they did. We know David and Goliath is a prime example of that. That was after. And, the thing is, it's not all just biblical evidence. A lot of people will say, oh, it's just the Bible and the Bible alone. No, there's other things. You had mentioned the giants, the Book of Enoch. These are extra biblical, references. And in addition to that, we have things at the Smithsonian that proves their existence. And we have eyewitness accounts and all of these kinds of things that add to it, plus the megaliths and the things that we can see in the physical world, the pyramids, everything of that nature. Now, fast forward, now that they kind of, got the history on that, what form do they take today? And what do the giants and the aliens and the UFOs have to do with each other?
In some cases, very much. In other cases, very little. The UFO question, the alien question, is highly complex and compartmentalized. In order to talk about the alien question, we have to consider a pre-Adamic contingency as well. In other words, was there a pre-Adamic race, a non-human pre-Adamic race inhabiting the earth before Adam showed up in the garden? I am persuaded that there was. And then we have to then further ask the question, is it possible that a pre-Adamic race, let's say serpentine type race, pre-existed Adam and is still occupying the earth? That's one question. The other question is, do we have a hybrid strain or multiple hybrid strains that are the result of other sentient entities, possibly escapees from the flood, or perhaps that are new kinds of creatures that are resultant from the sexual intercourse with other beings, heavenly beings, with human beings, or with animals. That's certainly a possible contingency. So it's a very complex question. But what I do know is that giants, not 6.5, 7 foot NBA type giants, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up to 15, even up to 18 and 20 feet giants still roam the earth today. Because it's very much like the Bigfoot question. Remember, we called our last film Holocaust of Giants. And it's sort of a play on words, because the giants, we talk about the Anasazi Indians and the possible scenario in which the Indians were devoured by the giants, and so therefore the giants enacted a Holocaust on the Anasazi. But also, there is a divine Holocaust mandated from heaven against the abominable hybrid race. And this is a clear thread a clear narrative in Scripture. This is an abominable race, the hybrid race, and there is a divine Holocaust mandated to exterminate them. We see this with Joshua and Moses. We see it further with David and the mighty men, who are in several cases killing giants and eliminating the tribes that are associated with the giants, or at least defeating these tribes. And we see it in the historical record. We see it in the record of the conquest of Peru, where there's a very famous story in which, and I won't go into detail, but there's a very famous story in which giants inhabiting what was part of the Incan Empire were struck down by an angel and killed. Actually, they were killed in the act they were killed in a homosexual act. In the midst of a homosexual act, they were struck dead by this angel. So there is a Holocaust mandated by God against the abominable hybrid race, the illicit race that was never supposed to exist on the earth. And so that's why the giants would be now contained within the most primitive, the most hard to reach niches on the earth.
Yeah, well, I think I mean, the giants are, the Nephilim of the Bible, and we have the fallen angels, we have the demons, which are the dead Nephilim. And I think they're all in league together. The UFOs, we kind of talked, they could be drone bodies, but they're all in league and they're all part of the satanic agenda. Obviously, people have seen spacecrafts. You yourself have seen one. People have seen the alien grays, the Nordic ones. I mean, there's all different styles. And as you said, they can have, in the book of Enoch and the book of Yasher, it talks about these entities having sex with animals and humans. And obviously you have sex with an animal, you're going to form a fish-man hybrid kind of thing, or whatever else freakish stuff. I mean, really is freak things. But in a nutshell, maybe in closing, can you tell me what on earth is their agenda? And just to, kind of sum it up.
I can't tell you what their agenda is in a nutshell, but I will say that I don't know that they're all in league. I would say that the situation is so highly complex that you have at this point all kinds of non-human sentient entities inhabiting the earth, primarily beneath our feet in the underworld. And when I say the underworld, I'm not talking about the regions of Hades. I'm talking about literally in the cavern systems and the underground tunnels and so forth beneath our feet, which I think the deep underground military bases have inadvertently opened some of these. And I think there's a lot of evidence for that. If you look at, for example, the story of Phil Schneider. But in terms of the agenda of these entities, I would say that their agenda is multifaceted. I would say that all of these entities are enemies of the gospel, are enemies of the human race, even though they would claim that some of them would claim, so you mentioned the Nordics, some of these species would claim that they're the friends of the human race, they're here to enlighten us, to help us, and so forth. I believe that they're all enemies of the gospel, but that they're not necessarily in league. However, the overarching plan of our adversary is driving this discombobulated association of all of these entities, is driving them forward towards one particular goal. And that goal, I guess, in a nutshell, at the end of the day, is the usurpation of the human race on the earth, and then more pointedly, specifically as it pertains to the devil, the usurpation of the throne that belongs to Jesus for the governance of the earth. And that is, in a nutshell, what the agenda is.
Are they in league with many in, say, the upper ranks of the government, or those who are pulling the strings, the globalists, Illuminati? Are they in league, some of them, you think?
Yes, on many different levels.
Awesome. Well, I agree 100% there.
In the world of the occult, more ethereal, spiritual type entities, but also it goes beyond that. It goes to I believe that the government, including the United States government, but also the Russian government and other governments of the world, have actually signed what we might consider treaties, have come to actual agreements with non-human, what we might call alien entities. Very dangerous accords, which have led to much of the abductions and some of the other scenarios that are now happening on the earth.
Yeah, I would love to get into the abduction story. I know you guys have done a lot of research on that too, maybe for another day. But with that, can you share, I don't know if you have a YouTube channel, any information, more on the videos and all of that? Google decided to take me off of YouTube. They took my YouTube channel down with no explanation overnight and accused me of violating the community guidelines. What was the community guideline you violated?
I didn't violate a community guideline.
Well, I mean, the reason that they gave you, I mean, what was, because sometimes they don't even tell you.
Guidelines. I think because I would say that they took me down specifically because of two things. Number one, because of my adversarial position on the Vatican, but then also because of my analysis that I did on deep underground military bases. But I'm going to be relaunching a YouTube channel, and I'm also launching a website. It's not up right now, so if people want to track with us, they can find us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Gen 6 Productions. They can find all of the analyses that I've done and my work and Steve's work there together, everything that we've done for Gen 6 Productions. If they want to see our films, they can get our films at TrueLegendsTheSeries.com. And if they want to go to the Branson Conference, at which Steve will be speaking, I will be speaking, Ellie Marsuli, Tom Horn, Derek Gilbert, Michael Lake, Anselm P. Rambla, and some other folks, they can go to gen6conferences.com to sign up. We also have live streaming available for the event. So those are the places that they can find us. And pretty soon I'll have a website up, timothyalbrino.com. Right now it's not up. It's not up yet. And I'm going to attempt to relaunch a YouTube page. Google specifically told me in no uncertain terms that I was forbidden to ever have another YouTube account.
No way. That's horrible. I mean, that's when you know you struck a chord and done something right. I know anytime the Vatican, and we were going to get into some of the Vatican today, we just ran out of time, but anytime you start talking about them, you get censored pretty hardcore. That's how you know that, and the deep underground military bases, that's how you know you're doing something right.
Well, there's also the fact that I went into the headquarters of the Jesuit, the Curia, at the Vatican with cameras and filmed inside of the Vatican, inside of the Curia in Rome, the Jesuit headquarters, with Leo Zagami.
Is that on your video on the Unholy See one by chance?
That's in the Unholy See, and I'm sure that they were not very pleased about that particular incident. So that might have been another reason why they took me down off of YouTube, but I don't know. There's a dozen reasons why they might have, but filming inside of the Jesuit headquarters with Leo Zagami is not something that is going to be smiled at by the Jesuits.
Well, all the reason to get your second series there, The Unholy See, because hey, they got footage in there they obviously want kept quiet. So check that out. I'll leave that below. Well, I'll have all the information on the Genesis 6 conference and all that below. You guys can check that out. I actually may be going and grabbing some interviews while I'm there. But with that, thanks again for tuning into my channel. This is Lisa Haven and Timothy Alberino signing out.